I genuinely don't know how I'm awake this morning. I am so tired. I thought it was meant to be that the deadline somehow finished at 7 o'clock. It didn't feel like that last night as Arsenal's deadline day antics went on into the late hours. We're going to talk about Arsenal's transfer deadline day, the window as a whole, get your questions answered, of course, more fallout from the weekend, and what this looks like for Arsenal's future as they completed their eighth signing, committing more than £300 million in a single window. This is today's Arsenal Transfer Show and the last of this summer. Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys and girls for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show, our final transfer show of, as I say, the summer and this kind of period, really. We'll be back, of course, again tomorrow morning with the continuation of the Arsenal News Show, which always takes me a little while to kind of click into saying the right words, of course. And then, of course, the Transfer Show will return at the start of December. We always begin these transfer shows a month before the next window opens. So from tomorrow morning, don't worry, we're going nowhere. Shows for you will carry on 8 a.m. every single day. Of course, we'll be getting those Arsenal news shows going. Now, I do have some slightly bad news, and it is, I'll be completely honest with you, entirely my fault. And I take full responsibility for this. We managed over the course of the transfer window to get over 1,000 likes on every single episode from the point that we began our challenge. Now, in the last 2 days of the window, I slacked. I'll be very honest with you. I slacked off. I forgot to remind people. Yesterday, I was obviously on, it was, on Sunday morning. We weren't here. We were down south because I just stayed at my family-in-laws and then was traveling out to Liverpool. It was a really quick show. I forgot to tell you. And of course, yesterday I was in full rant mode when it came to the Liverpool game. And again, I forgot to remind you. So we went the whole summer other than the final 2 days of the window, which currently sit around 970, 960 likes on each of those shows. So and if you want to go back and help make it a clean sweep, that would be great. Feel free to go and do that on the last two shows before today. But I just want to say, first of all, thank you to all of you that have listened throughout the summer. It's always a real highlight of each year covering the summer transfer window with you all. I took a break for the first time, though, in June. We went away to Canada. It's encouraged me to be a little bit more open to the idea of taking breaks. I think breaks are really important, and I'm going to be taking a break over the course of Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. There won't be any shows over those 4 days because I'm going to be in Italy enjoying Naples. And of course, this is a celebration for my Mrs. 30th that we're taking her out there. So yeah, very, very much looking forward to another little break over the international break as well. And then we'll return to you next Tuesday as well. We'll be kicking off, of course, ahead of what is the run through to Christmas. Amazingly so, of course, as well. So plenty of shows still to come, plenty of exciting news to discuss, plenty of football matches to break down and think about. We've got Athletic Club Bilbao coming up, where I'll be in Spain, of course, fingers crossed, to cover that fixture. And, of course, the big games against Forest, Man City and Newcastle also to come as well. So loads of football is on its way to you and, of course, for Arsenal. Good morning to all of you joining us in the chat box. Really appreciate your time and your listenership and your dedication. Franklin, Mark, Brad, Ken in the chat, Temmie, Steve, Paul, Blackshine, Morgie. We also got Steve in the chat, of course, as well. And I just also want to point out, too, that, of course, we are a big, big family here, I should say. A really, really, really big family at TGT Towers. And it's important that always, I think, that we've had some brilliant, absolutely brilliant people in this community. And I noticed Steve's in the chat box this morning. I'm not going to divulge any personal information about Steve because it's not up to me to do so. But I did get a little message yesterday which pointed me to the fact that Steve is going for a pretty tricky time at the moment. So I want to offer you, Steve, all of my love and support in the world. I know there's nothing I can do really other than to say that you have all of our love and support here at the Gooner Talk channel. The community is here for you, and I'm glad to see you this morning in the chat box, genuinely, and I hope that things are going to be on the up for you very, very soon. So, Steve, we're here for you, mate, and stay strong, brother. Please do, and keep wearing that cap as much as it's possible as well, my friend. Right, let's go to the stories now and into the roundup of course, what was transfer deadline day. We begin with what I'm going to describe as the Hamburg brothers, because we had two players leave for the newly promoted Bundesliga team. And one of them left on a permanent move and the other left on a temporary move as well. So Albert Sambi Lokonga joined Hamburg on a permanent deal this summer, which of course is an end to a 4-year stint at the club, which just didn't work out for Lokonga. It's a real shame. There's a lot of potential in that player when he arrived, but unfortunately, kind of the situations, sadly, just never aligned to allow Lokonga to fulfill that potential that was seen by Arteta and Vincent Kompany. And ultimately, injuries were the biggest, most kind of damaging part of his time, and also some managerial coincidences. He was on loan with Crystal Palace, playing under Patrick Vieira, doing quite well. And then Vieira got sacked. And I think it was Roy Hodgson that came in, and all of a sudden those minutes just absolutely disappeared for Lokonga. But he leaves on a permanent deal. We don't yet know the clarity around the fee. There's been quite a lot of conflicting reports. We've seen some fees range from 3 million all the way up to 10 million. So we're not 100% sure on the situation regarding Lokonga, but it is a permanent move, and the fee, I imagine, is somewhere in the realms of 3 to 10 million pounds. Fabio Vieira, though, is left on loan. He leaves, of course, after a summer where Arsenal really did try to get a permanent sale for the Portuguese international, but with his kind of situation, there wasn't anyone willing to kind of meet the expectations over his price tag. And he joins Hamburg on loan with an option to buy in that contract as well. So really, really disappointing, I guess, that they didn't get what they want, but it is positive for him that he gets a loan and maybe a permanent exit, of course, in the summer. Reiss Nelson also left Arsenal in this window very late on. I think everything that happened, everything that I said at the start of yesterday's show, bar one story, I think went down. I'll talk about that one that did surprise me. I think surprised a lot of people as well in the end. But Reiss Nelson did eventually find a move. It is my understanding that his preference was always to remain in London, hence why we saw kind of Fulham and Crystal Palace heavily linked. James Bench from CBS reported also that there was interest from Besiktas as well. But eventually he did sign for Brentford. Fabrizio Romano breaking the story yesterday. It is my understanding that there is an option to buy and a loan fee involved in the deal for Reiss Nelson joining Brentford. So that's also positive for Arsenal, as there is some kind of financial return. He has 1 year remaining on his contract if indeed he returns to Arsenal at the end of this season. But as I say, Brentford do have an option in this loan deal to buy the player at the end of his season there. The surprise, because it happened really, really late in the day, was Oleksandr Zinchenko. The Ukrainian international looked for all the world like he was going to be staying at Arsenal for the final year of his contract, but instead he will leave the club permanently at the end of this season, having spent the season on loan with Nottingham Forest. Now, immediately, I imagine some of your kind of alarm bells are going off in your head. How can he leave on loan? He's only got a year left on his deal. But the reality is that Arsenal will, of course, be saving wages with him leaving for the season. He's on quite significant wages. I think there's suggestions it's around £150,000 per week, roughly. And so Arsenal would be getting, if not all, certainly a percentage of those wages off the wage bill as well. And of course, there is a loan fee I understand, involved in this deal as well, and that Andrea Berta has negotiated a fee that Nottingham Forest paid to Arsenal to take Zinchenko on loan for the season. So Zinchenko, his leave does benefit Arsenal financially, even though it's not a permanent deal that sees him leave officially, because he only has 1 year left at the end of his contract. At the end of this summer, he will leave Arsenal after the completion of this loan move, unless a extension is negotiated. But I would be shocked, way more shocked than I was when this move emerged, that was going to happen. Jakub Kiwior, of course, confirmed his departure from Arsenal after joining Porto on loan with an option to buy. We understand that option is in the realms of 27 million euros, with 2 million euros in add-ons, the full package of that move. And there is an expectation beyond all parties that will be activated next summer. It is a sad farewell for Kiwior, and I wish him genuinely all the very best over in Portugal too, because this guy, I think, really did try for Arsenal. I think he gave his absolute everything playing for Arsenal. And we saw that at the end of last season. This is a guy that, with Gabriel out injured, arguably the best centre-half in the Premier League at that point in time, when Gabriel suffered that surgery-requiring injury, that Jakub Kiwior came in, helped us to defeat Real Madrid 5-1 across 2 legs, played in the Bernabeu against Mbappe and Rodrigo and Vinicius Jr., Jude Bellingham, Jakub Kiwior has got my utmost respect. And not only that, but if you have a look at the interview that he did on the Porto Twitter feed yesterday, he done it in English. Now, when Jakub Kiwior arrived at Arsenal, he barely spoke a word of English. And what this shows is, obviously, as well, over the course of his time with Arsenal, some players leave Arsenal having come from abroad and they haven't grasped the language. It doesn't mean they necessarily didn't try, but English is a really hard language. And coming from Poland, like Polish in particular, is a really, really difficult language to kind of learn English from. It's not like a Germanic language, of course, like German, or, of course, Spanish and French as well. They're more romantic languages as well, that have kind of got links into the English language. Is it Romanic or romantic languages? Someone who's good at languages, tell me what the phrase is. Because you've got Germanic and then a different type of language. But, there's a massive difference between Polish and English. And learning the English language as a Pole is a real challenge. And he is romantic, thank you. He took on that challenge, and he took on that and learned the English language, and adapted and integrated into the team, and was able to better communicate with his teammates, and now has been able to conduct an interview with a Portuguese club in English as a result. And you can go and listen to that on the Porto page. And I just wanted to highlight that because I thought it was a really telling kind of thing about Kiwior, that one of the quieter lads. I never had an interaction with him. He was always very quiet, kept himself to himself when he was walking past the mix zone or walking past any of the media. But by all intents and purposes, I heard he was just an absolute top professional and a lovely guy. So I do genuinely wish him all the best and thank him for his service to Arsenal, of course, as well. But this paved the way, of course, for Arsenal's final and 8th summer signing, of course, as well, with Piero Hincapie joining on loan for the rest of this season, with an expectation that there will be a £45 million loan option activated at the end of this season, where he will then sign a 5-year contract. Speaking upon his arrival, Sporting Director Andrea Berta said, "We are delighted to have completed the loan signing of Piero Hincapie. At only 23, Piero already has significant experience both in the Bundesliga and at international level. He is an intelligent defender with real strength and versatility. His performances in recent years for both club and country have been of a consistently high quality, and we are confident Piero will continue to grow this season and be an important player for us." Arteta said, "We are so pleased to welcome Piero Hincapie to the club. Piero is a real physical presence with his versatility and tactical flexibility, giving a strong added defensive options. He is a big character with a very good combination of both youth and maturity. He will make our squad stronger and more competitive as we continue into this season. We welcome Piero and his family to Arsenal. He did conduct an interview, of course, on the Arsenal website with the Arsenal media team. So you can go and watch and listen to that interview as well. So go and check it out. Go and check out the interview. I don't think it's been transcribed yet. I'm trying to see if there is any first words or anything like that from Hincapie. But at the moment, I'm not seeing anything. But hold on, maybe I found one here. Let's have a look and see if here we go. So upon signing for the Gunners, he said, "To be honest, everything I've always watched the Premier League games and saw Arsenal play. They've got an amazing manager as well as top class players. I was convinced because they want to win big trophies and big things. That was another motivation for me to come here." So just a few words on that interview that he conducted. You can watch it. It was obviously done in, I believe, Spanish, and so has been translated with subtitles over on the Arsenal website. So go and give that a watch if you will. But 8th signing, really positive deal. We've talked about Hincapie a lot and kind of what we've known this deal was going to happen for a little while, but really positive move for the Gunners. And that kind of rounds up deadline day, but also the summer, for Arsenal. And Andrea Berta, I think has won the transfer window. I think if there's any individual, and I know that we saw Alexander Isak finally make that move to Liverpool yesterday, as I predicted and expected to happen. I know a lot of people were hopeful that it wasn't going to happen, but it was a prediction of mine when I was writing along the lines of how deadline day might go, that I thought that it would happen in the end. And, lo and behold, it has. Although they didn't sign Mark Guehi, and that deal fell through at the end. So they are still somewhat quite light in defence, although Joe Gomez has signed a new contract there as well and was not allowed to leave on deadline day. But Andrea Berta, for me, the work that he has done, and the key reason why I think that he, for me, wins the window overall over Liverpool is because, obviously, Liverpool have left gaps. Liverpool have left some key gaps in the squad that Andrea Berta hasn't left in the Arsenal squad. Liverpool, if you look, are light at centre-half. They're light in defensive midfield, and they needed to have those areas addressed. And were I Liverpool, having seen the exploits of Hugo Ekitike, having got Mohamed Salah, having got Cody Gakpo, and other key players in that kind of attacking line, if I could spend £130 million, I would have gone in and spent that on a top-class centre-half and a top-class defensive midfielder. And I think that would have probably wrapped up the league for Liverpool, in all honesty. But I think Liverpool's business has left the door open ajar for Arsenal, who have gone into the market and addressed every single area that they wanted to. Centre-forward, signed. Left-sided attacking player who can also play through the middle, signed in Eberechi Eze. Depth for Bukayo Saka, Noni Madueke, who I thought really did impress at Liverpool, signed. 2 number 6s to replace the 2 number 6s we had before, signed. A versatile defender to both upgrade upon Tomiyasu and, of course, bring more regular and quality cover, as we saw at Anfield in Mosquera, signed. Kiwior goes, quick replacement that is also an upgrade, in my opinion, and one of the best young, versatile left-side defenders in Europe over the last few seasons, signed. Backup goalkeeper that had been such a problem for Arsenal over so many seasons, signed. Arsenal completed 8 deals across the window and have solved so many problems, so many issues, so many issues. And for me, have the most complete team and squad when everyone is fit. And that's kind of the big issue at the moment. It's when everyone is fit. Because Arsenal are suffering again at the start of this new season with a spate of injuries that we significantly hope improves for us after the international break, of course, concludes. And maybe we'll get White and Norgard back into the fold. Trossard and Ødegaard be back fully fit again. Bukayo Saka will be closing on a return within the next kind of couple of weeks after the international break has finished as well. So overall, they had an excellent window. But that said, there was still two things that Arsenal could not quite achieve. Not even what is becoming an iconic figure in Andrea Berta could not solve. And that, of course, was Arsenal's sales reputation. Arsenal ended up, of course, getting, I think, a decent figure for Jakub Kiwior, or expected to get a decent figure for Jakub Kiwior. And if Fabio Vieira does go permanently, they hope to get, there's reports in Germany that it was 20 plus million euros that they could potentially get. So, hopefully around 20 million pounds for Fabio Vieira. They would have done well to get that if Hamburg end up paying that fee. Of course, there's an option, I think, in Karl-Heinz's contract with Werder Bremen for next summer as well. Reiss Nelson also has an option. They've got some money from the Zinchenko loan deal as well. You've also got Lokonga and money having been brought in for him. Don't look at the Transfermarkt website. I don't believe that is accurate regarding Lokonga's fee, and that needs to be updated. They managed to get the majority, if not all of the money back from Marquinhos, of course, who left early in the window for Cruzeiro, but they weren't able to sell Vieira. They weren't able to sell Nelson. They weren't able to sell Zinchenko. They weren't able to sell some of these key players that they perhaps may have wanted to. And the state of the squad is that they still have space. Arsenal have 13 non-homegrown players going into the start of next season, 12 this season, because Mosquera at the moment counts as an under-21s player, but next season he will count as a non-homegrown player. So there will still be 4 non-homegrown spots available going into next season. They've currently got, I believe, 8 homegrown players at the club. Madueke, Eze, Saka, White, Rice, Raya, Saliba, Martinelli. They are the 8 homegrown players that they have. And then, of course, as I mentioned, they've got currently 13, including Mosquera, who, of course, will by next season be non-homegrown, but at the moment, so 12 this season, non-homegrown players in their squad. And then you add the under-21s, which make up the 25, although they don't need to be registered. Maslow Skelly, Ethan Winery, Mosquera, and Max Dowman. So in Premier League rules, Madueke counts as homegrown, but he doesn't count as homegrown, neither does Saliba or Martinelli for UEFA rules. It is worth pointing out as well. So that's it. And then, of course, the youth side of things. That's the other element that I think was something of a letdown regarding outgoings. Incomings, Arsenal did some really, really good things. They signed Demian from Derby. Oshin Avuna, of course, the 16-year-old Irish youth international, of course, from Shamrock Rovers, who is expected to join Arsenal in January of 2027. Really exciting deal there, but he'll stay with Shamrock Rovers, of course, until then. So the work was done to bring in some exciting young players. But outgoings-wise, youth loans, Ismail Kabia went to Shrewsbury Town. Lucas Nygaard went to IF Brandby in Denmark on loan for the season. But overall, that was it. So no loan for Charles Sago Jr., no loan for Josh Nichols, no loan for Maldini Kakuri and others. That element, I think, of Arsenal's youth side of things needs some scrutiny. It needs some addressing. And in the future, we need to be better at getting more loans. Look at the volume of young players that Chelsea and City get loaned out playing senior football. And I know that having multi-club models definitely, beyond anything, helps. But Arsenal obviously need, I think, something to improve that element of kind of the youth side of things, so that in the future we can not only potentially get more experience for those players, but potentially get better fees for those players if they are to be sold in the future as well. If you want to read the full story of Arsenal's record-breaking transfer window and how Andrea Berta transformed everything, you can, of course, go over to the Football.London website after you finish watching today's show. Go and give my long read piece a read and give it as much detail. There's stuff about the Ebereze hijack. There's stuff about the Seshko Gyökeres situation, the problem even Berta could not fix. A lot of details, a lot of insight, a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff there. So if you want to go and get educated on what went down, go and give it a read. There's also a little bit on kind of the Rodrigo, Anthony Gordon interest in there as well. But we're going to go to part 2 now. After, of course, we've taken some of your questions as well and getting some of your reactions. And I see there's a lot of you in the chat box this morning too, in the chat. And I've all got some very strong opinions. So I look forward to getting all your strong opinions in part 2. But it's also important to have a strong opinion about keeping yourself safe online and keeping your data safe. In particular, maybe perhaps using a public Wi-Fi service. I was at a hotel yesterday, which was a public Wi-Fi service. traveling around the UK covering Arsenal, you pop into a few cafes now and again to set up your laptops. You need to write a story on the fly. You use a public Wi-Fi service. You need to have a VPN on when you're doing that. And there really is only one choice when it comes to a VPN service, and that is, of course, NordVPN. And if you go to nordvpn.com/Gooner, you can get yourself a significant discount off a 1 or a 2 year plan. Make sure, of course, that you're getting on top of that 2 year plan deal, because there is 4 months extra thrown in free on top of that too. And there's a 30-day money back guarantee on top of that. Well, if you're not happy with the service for whatever reason, links down in the description. Change your location digitally. Make sure you protect yourself online, and don't say I didn't tell you, because I have. Right, let's go to part 2. Your questions and more right after this. Right, this is part 2 of today's show, where, of course, we're going to jump into the chat box and tackle some of your questions, some of your thoughts around the window, around deadline day, about things that happened, about things that didn't happen. Now is the time, of course, for you to jump into the chat and tackle and throw them in. Use a capital Q. It really does help those questions stand out. So if you want to do that now. And I'll try and get to as many of these comments as possible. Right, let's go to Chino, who says, Tom, now that the summer window has concluded, which team have had the better squad and depth? City, Liverpool, or Arsenal? I think Liverpool have the better team. I think when you look at kind of the starting 11, Liverpool have the best team. Wirtz, Ekitike, or Gakpo, Isak, Salah, McAllister, Gravenberch, Kirkes, Frimpong, Van Dijk, Konate, Alisson. That's the best team, I think, in the league. But I think as a squad, Arsenal probably have the best and the broadest and most coverage in their squad in terms of strength and depth. So squad-wise, Arsenal, but Arsenal at the moment are suffering with a lot more injury issues than Liverpool are. So there is, of course, that to factor into the discussion as well. So it's not as cut and dry as just saying Arsenal have the best squad right now, because we're obviously suffering with the most injuries, of course, right now. So Mick says, I always ask non-football questions. If you could eat one meal for the rest of time, what would it be? Probably an all-you-can-eat buffet, mate, to be fair. Yeah. That's a meal, right? If you go out for an all-you-can-eat buffet, that's a meal. So it's a cheat answer. I'll absolutely take the cheat answer all day long. If I could only have one dish for the rest of time, well, I guess kind of like you've got to pick something that's nutritious, that gives you all your different kind of, your vitamin benefits, your veg, your fruit, that's tough. You need your protein, your carbs. It's really tough, that one, because I think you got to be smart about it, right? I think you got to be really smart, but maybe I'll just be selfish and say I want a roast dinner like every day, like roast chicken dinner or roast lamb dinner. Either of those, I think it's right. And Rowan says the answer is always Nando's, which is a good answer. But Nathan says, I hope we have solved the left forward position, but there remains uncertainty there as well. Of course, I hope we have solved it too. And hopefully, Eze, I think, showed in that very small cameo we got of him just how much better he is than what we already had in that area. Snipescope says, want to know a big gap that we have? Left winger Martinelli has had the biggest fall off and offers nothing. Trossard isn't a starter and only Goods coming on. Angry. Eze is a 10. I mean, Sniperscope, what I'd say to you is go rewatch Eze's performance at Anfield and then come back and tell me that he's just a 10. Satoki says, I don't think it was all Berta's fault on loans. No disrespect to the players, but who wants to pay £20 million on Lokonga and Nelson? And, absolutely. And I don't think I sat here and said that, it's all on Berta. I just said it's a problem that even he couldn't fix completely. Adrian says, I would have sold Martinelli and bought in a top left winger. Yeah, I think most of us would have done that, Adrian. But unfortunately, to sell a player, you need to have suitors, and you need the player also to want to move as well, which in all of those aspects didn't happen. It didn't take place. Samuel says, Tom, do you reckon that Martinelli could improve with some proper competitive time on the sidelines with Eze now? I mean, maybe it could push him to be better. That's all we can hope for, is that it kind of pushes him to improve. I sincerely hope the Arsenal fan base doesn't just fall by the wayside, Martinelli. I hope that he still gets the backing when he plays and pulls on the red and white, as any player should. I know you can have your opinions and your criticisms. I think that's important. You're entitled to that. But I also think there is an element of responsibility as a fan to hope that they continue to get better and improve and prove us wrong as well. I think that's also important to point out. Avinash says, Tom, with the international break coming in, can we expect Arsenal to finally start coming together as a gelled team? Or are the players leaving on international duty hindering this opportunity? Well, I mean, there's obviously a huge contingent of players that will be leaving. Raya will be leaving. Saliba's obviously staying because of his injury situation. Mosquera, I don't know if he's been called up to the Spain squad or not. I don't think so. Maybe the under-21s, but I'm not sure. You'll know probably maybe more than I will. Maybe I've clicked that info. Ben White is injured at the moment, so not going. Hincapie will be going, I imagine, with Ecuador. Gabriel's off with Brazil. Timber's off with the Netherlands. Calafiori, I believe, will be off with Italy. Lewis Skelly's off with England. Erdegaard's off with Norway. Norgard's staying because of an injury. Ethan's off with England under-21s. Mikel Merino and Zubimendi are off with Spain. Reiss is off with England. Saka, of course, Jesus, all back at Colney because they are, of course, recovering from injury. Eze will be with England. Martinelli is with Brazil. Gyökeres with Sweden. Trossard with Belgium, I believe. Madueke with England as well. Havertz, of course, staying and going through that rehabilitation as well. So, yeah, I don't think the international break is where you gel. To be honest, I don't think it's the time that's used to gel. But I guess for some of those players, they can integrate potentially as well. And it says, Tom, it's unfortunate we couldn't have gotten a left winger. However, I can't see Martinelli getting back into this team, that we have Eze playing there. But overall, it's a 10 out of 10. What? But Anthony, you told me that it was a 7 out of 10. So how has it now changed to a 10 out of 10? I mean, I love it, but what? I don't understand. Please help me understand how that's changed all of a sudden. You said that unless we sign a left winger, it's a 7 out of 10. So why has that changed? What's happened there, Anthony, mate? What's going on? Chino says, Tom, do you think that there is a chance that Saka will be back for Forest, even if he can't start? I highly doubt it, but who knows? Never say never. Patrick says, I don't understand why we aren't trying to play balls over the top to Gyökeres. I didn't see one attempt at Anfield from any midfielder to try and find him, apart from hitting him with his back to go. I guess because Liverpool are one of the best when it comes to cutting out central long balls with Van Dijk and Konate. They're one of the best teams at doing that. So we felt it was better to play the balls down the flanks instead, like we saw Madueke get in behind a number of times. So I guess that's probably the reason why. Nike says, does Arteta think we have a squad that can win any team that we face? The approach against Liverpool didn't seem like Arteta has that feeling. Well, his explanation is that he felt that with the players that were absent, he couldn't do that. He felt, without Erdegaard fully fit, without Saka, without some of these key players, he felt the team that he selected was the best one for the job. I personally disagree. I would have started Eze or Waneri in the 10 in this game. But I don't agree. I don't necessarily agree with that. But I don't also agree with some of the punditry that came out after the match. I thought some of that was ridiculous. So, Jamie Carragher was going in on kind of like creativity. Arsenal have signed 3 of the top 5 contributors of goals in terms of chances, creation for shots on target or for goals in Madueke and Eze, and they have the 3rd in Saka in the top 5. So the whole creativity argument around the signing of a striker, was really hollow and just didn't make any sense at all when you actually know what you're talking about. As fortunately, Jamie Carragher displays on several occasions that he doesn't. But Arsenal's striker problem and the finishing of chances, of course, is still something that is somewhat relevant, and Arsenal need to continue to try and find ways of better integrating him into their system, and that will come with time. We're only 3 Premier League games into the season, so And we've played 2 big away games as well. Not like we've had the opportunity to play plenty of home games or European games where Gyökeres, I think, will suit a lot more. Kirill says, thank you so much for the kind donation, by the way. Enjoy your time in Naples. I just want to say thank you to you all and for the people in the chat box, how kind and sweet you all are. I'm also struggling. We're all struggling, Kirill, and it's important that, we're open about when we have our struggles, and I'm glad that you have. And it's important to go and seek the help that you need when you are struggling. I think, go and seek out support, be that therapy, be that speaking to friends or family. It's really important that you do reach out and get support if indeed you need it. That's really, really key. Mark, thank you for your donation. Says, why are some bad habits like Martinelli looking down while dribbling hard to coach out of? I guess some of them are kind of embedded deeply into players' psyche, and it's really difficult to break out of those habits. And, same as you and me, Mark, I guess, there's habits that you really struggle to break out of. I can't break out of saying sin rather than saying seen. It's ingrained in me. So I think some things are just very difficult to shake. Anthony, explaining the 10 out of 10 rating, says, Tom, we got rid of the deadwood barring Kiwior. Kiwior has gone. He's going to be leaving on a permanent deal next summer, we expect. Players, I'm happy with that. Just have to make peace with Eze on the wing, as he should be better than Martinelli. Than the whole 70 minutes that we obviously saw him play as well. Donny Dan says, Arteta needs to take something away from that Liverpool game, and he needs to realise that we are ready in games like that to go there to win and go for the kill, not to be conservative. And I think this is a very, very key point. Jay says, shows Arteta's his negativity and lack of attacking now, so if he thinks he can't change tactics with our current fit squad. Now, one thing I would disagree with about the whole analysis of the Liverpool game is this idea that we weren't attacking at all. That's not true. In the first half, Arsenal were far more attacking than Liverpool in that game. They had more chances, they had more touch in the opposition box, they had shots on target. Liverpool didn't. And I think it's unfortunate that in the half that we were better than them, we didn't have that extra attacking player, I think, to just give us that extra edge, an extra bit of threat that could have seen us score, rather than, of course, in the second half when we brought players on slightly, significantly too late, in my opinion, to take advantage of kind of that extra effort that we had available to us. So that's kind of where I'm at, on that front. I think the analysis of the game against Liverpool, I think is fair in some aspects. But I think some people have gone way too far, as they do, as they always do. But I kind of raised my concerns yesterday at length. So if you want to hear kind of my raw thoughts about the game, go and watch that. But some people always end up taking it too far. Mick says, Ødegaard loves dropping out of the zone 10 to come and get the ball, which is great when we have Havertz on the pitch, because then Havertz can come and get the ball, but Gyökeres stays high and is isolated. Well, I think actually we looked more isolated with a player that in Marino. I think Ødegaard will help a lot having Ødegaard behind him and Eze on the left. I think we'll see a lot more from Gyökeres when those two play from the start. And we did look slightly more, or significantly more threatening when both of them were on the field when they came off the bench. But by that point, Liverpool kind of grabbed hold of the control of the game, and then they, of course, got the goal from nothing. If they hadn't have scored from that free kick, you could have easily seen Arsenal nick a goal at the end with Ødegaard and Eze on the pitch. But by that point, the game state had, of course, changed after the free kick hit the back of the net. Fuad says, Tom, how do you think the club should improve on sales moving forwards in comparison to our rival clubs? It's a very difficult question to answer, Fuad. I think there is a number of things that we can do. I think we need to be more proactive in the loaning of younger players in particular, and find more solutions to their futures and be more proactive in trying to get those players out. Obviously, I think the way in which we're signing players now is going to change the context of the squad. Arteta holds part of this responsibility. He needs to give more exposure to more players throughout games. We can't be just making 2 or 3 subs. We need to be making all 5 during games and getting as many players exposure to minutes as feasibly possible. Players that you see in the squad right now are not all going to be here forever. Not all these players are going to stay. And we need to become comfortable with the idea that some players who we're kind of used to seeing play will move on at some point. It's not guaranteed that Mosquera will be at Arsenal forever. And so we need to play him so that if he ever does move on, we get a good fee for him. We did that to an extent with Kiwior towards the end of the season, but that came about more because of necessity with Gabriel's injury than actually giving him exposure to more minutes. So I think that there is something in that needs to slightly change. Aman says, was there a reason Nwaneri was left out of the match at Anfield? The team lacked creativity. I don't know what the specific reason was, other than Arteta clearly didn't think he was right for the game state. But I disagree and think he should have arguably started if he didn't want to start Eze, who I felt also probably should have started the game. Mark says, our squad is probably the best in the Premier League, save for our number 9, who is not yet Premier League proven. Our main issue is Arteta isn't sure of his decisions. Oh, believe me, Mark, he's sure of his decisions. He's very sure of his decisions. I just don't necessarily agree with the decisions that he sometimes makes. But trust me when I say he's very, very sure of his decisions. What I think sometimes is that he just isn't brave enough. I think there is an element of he needs to be a little bit more. He needs to be a bit more risky. He needs to take more chances. He's just quite, I would say, risk averse at times. He's too risk averse at times, and that could end up counting against Arsenal in the long run. And he needs to try and, I think, be a little bit more adventurous in certain games and a little bit braver. Recognise when a team aren't at their best, as Liverpool weren't. Even before yesterday's game, they weren't. And this idea that you can't dominate a game the whole time at Anfield, yeah, but that's why you've got Declan Rice. That's why you've got Martin Zubimendi. You've got 2 world-class players there. You've got a world-class centre-back in Gabriel. You've got, in my opinion, a world-class fullback in Jurriën Timber. You've got a player in Calafiori who is proving the doubters wrong. I mean, the amount of people that turn around and said to me, you can't play Calafiori against Salah. Well, turns out you can. He did really, really well. So Arsenal have got plenty of defensive quality that we didn't have to have a third kind of player in the ilk of Merino in that starting 11. And this is coming from somebody who likes Merino. I like Mikel Merino as a player. I think he's a valuable asset to the team. I think he's a good player. I think he'll rotate in with Rice in certain games, or even Zubimendi in certain games. And I think he'll be valuable to us when we're trying to win a game late on and he comes off the bench and he's a presence in the box. I think those elements of his game are going to be really valuable for us. So I just want to see more risks taken, by Arsenal. I think that's really important. Shepo says, Mark Guehi was the game change for me. It's Liverpool's depth in defence, and now 35% for us, Liverpool, 30% City, and 10% Chelsea. Wow, putting us as favourites. I'm probably the other way around after yesterday's, or rather Sunday's result. Mike says, not true. Even if you have concerns re the approach, to suggest that we were not trying to win is simply, but yeah, 100%. Like, anyone who says Arsenal weren't going there to try and win is wrong. I think the way in which they approached to try and get the win was wrong. I think we went up there to try and snatch victory rather than trying to grab victory. But anyone suggesting that we went up there trying to just get a draw, I'm sorry, but you're very, very wrong. You can tell that by the way in which we approached the first half, where we were hitting them on the counter, creating plenty of opportunities in the box, but not creating that clear-cut opportunity that would have led potentially to a goal. And that came about because of poor decision-making on Martinelli's part, a lack of a transitional midfielder in the centre of the park as well. I think had those two things been different, I think we would have seen a goal in that first period when Liverpool looked somewhat vulnerable. But yeah, anyone suggesting that we didn't go there to win, I'm sorry, you're wrong. We were too conservative in trying to get the victory, but suggesting that we went up there without any intention of winning or any intention of trying to win, no. There's no evidence that supports that argument at all. Mark says, Tom, what triggered Arteta to be risk averse? Is it due to personal experience as a player or other factors? I think that when Arteta arrived at Arsenal, Arsenal's defence was a huge mess. At the end of Arsene Wenger's tenure, throughout Unai Emery's tenure, defensively, Arsenal were a joke in the league, quite frankly, in terms of how efficient we were. And I also think that, in that season in 22-23, where we surprised everybody and were going for the title, we dropped points in silly games. In 23-24, we dropped points at home to West Ham. We dropped points away at Fulham. We dropped points against Aston Villa at home. And any of those games being turned into wins ultimately would have left us in a position whereby we would have won the league. The game we lost against Manchester City in April of 2023 when we were battered 4-1 by Man City, which was just an absolute regularity for Arsenal at that point. Like getting beaten by 2, 3, 4 goals by Liverpool and Man City was just a regularity. Maybe some of our younger listeners don't remember the 2010s as much as I do, but it was regular that Arsenal would get 3, 4, 5 goals put past them when they go away from home at these places. Arteta's Arteta's come in, can't speak this morning, and changed everything regarding Arsenal as a club. They are so much more competitive. They're so much more difficult to beat. You know, someone I recommend who is, you know, and I know that Arsenal fans aren't the biggest supporters of Liverpool biggest fans of Liverpool supporters, but if you ever want to get a good, nuanced view about football from someone who is a Liverpool fan, go and listen to Josh Williams. I've chatted to him a number of times. I used to work with him at Reach. He was kind of our tactics writer at Distance covered on X if you want to go and listen to him. I retweeted one of his tweets after the game, which I thought was typical of Josh. He said, stop, and from a Liverpool perspective, he said, stop moaning about Liverpool and appreciate how difficult it is to play against Arsenal. Proper side. Josh knows his stuff. Josh knows football. He gets it. He's one of the best writers. He's got books out on football. He knows his stuff. One of the best young writers in the game, in my opinion, and I always enjoy reading his stuff, even from the perspective of an Arsenal fan, reading the views of a Liverpool fan. I don't always agree with everything because, you know, why would you? We're all different. But it's really important to point out the change over the course of this time. And that's why you see that's why I'm so kind of quick to shut down like any comment saying Arteta's got to go, Arteta out, you know, he's terrible coach, will never win anything under this manager. It's rubbish. It's absolute rubbish because Arteta is the reason that Arsenal are competitive. Arteta is the reason that we can go into a season and be hopeful of trophies, have expectations of trophies in the current era. That comes from what Arteta's influence is on Arsenal. That comes from what he has done at Arsenal. And it's why I'm not comfortable at the moment being in a position where I think that it's the right time to move on from him. If we end the season trophyless again, I will have to assess what has happened. And it's not just a binary decision of no trophies, sacked. That's not how football works. Last season, Arsenal didn't win a trophy, but if anything, it was one of the most impressive achievements in some ways because of the volume of injuries, the fact we still finished second, the fact that we got to 2 semi-finals, including in the Champions League, battered Real Madrid, like all these things that happened, battered Man City 5-1, like all these things that happened last season that still couldn't quite get us to that silverware, showed me that this is a team that is still very much on the track towards silverware. But unfortunately, a lot of people can't look beyond their binary mindset of no trophies, not good enough. No trophies, can't win trophies, even though he obviously already has won trophies at Arsenal. So that, I think, just doesn't really work out. So you get people like Bailey in the chat, who I pray isn't Bailey Keogh. And I don't think it is. But you get people like this Bailey who says Arteta can't win trophies, though. We know, obviously, that's not true because he already has won them. But this idea that people just are utterly convinced that Arteta is incapable of lifting silverware, there is no evidence that that is true. No evidence that that is the case at all. Because A, he has already lifted them. B, he has put Arsenal back into the competitive sphere of European and domestic football for the first time in around 15 years. And thirdly, just look at the squad we have now. Look at the improvements, the players that have signed. Declan Rice is a better player than when he signed. Bukayo Saka has reached a world-class level under this coach. Kai Havertz, in my opinion, has improved since arriving and has proven a lot of his doubters wrong. Calafiori, when he's fit, I think is showing time and time again that he is improving in aspects of his game that I think people really doubted, like his defensive capabilities. He went and shut down Bukayo. He went and shut down Mohamed Salah at Anfield. He did excellently. And the only reason that we conceded there was because of a magic free kick. I think David Raya, under the delegation to Iñaki Kane, has improved as a goalkeeper and has got back-to-back Golden Glove awards and is already on. He was so close to getting his third clean sheet in 3 games this season so far. Jurrien Timber has risen in one full season, in my opinion, to becoming a world-class level right back. Gabriel, over the course of Arteta's tenure, has become a world-class, if not one of the best in the world for his position. William Saliba's potential has been realised under Arteta as a player. His little kind of errors that were going on when he was going on loan to Nice and Saint-Etienne and Marseille have been refined under Arteta, and he has grown into a brilliant player. We've brought through youngsters that was a big criticism of Arteta's tenure. Ethan Nwaneri and Miles Lewis-Skelly have been brought into the side, and also, not only that, but we gave exposure to other young players who were then sold for big money, like Nketiah and like Balogun as well, who, of course, have gone on to prove that they weren't actually worth the money that we sold them for with respect to them. But they haven't justified those transfer fees that Arsenal managed to get for them based upon the minutes that we gave them during Arteta's tenure here. So I really do struggle with this idea that some fans are utterly convinced that trophies won't happen, because all the evidence so far does not support that. It just doesn't. Everything that we've seen so far does not support that fact. We've been so close. So close. If Arsenal were regressing and going backwards and looking worse and weren't going to Anfield and at the champions and being in a position where I don't necessarily agree with everything in how we set up and how we played and how we went into that game, but the fact that we go to the champions, a team that have got so much talent and made them look very ordinary and needed, of course, a magic free kick to get the result. If you can't see what Arsenal are doing to teams like Real Madrid and Manchester City over the course of the last couple of seasons, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what more. And I genuinely think you're beyond reason. I don't think there's anything I could say. That little monologue there, all the evidence that we have, if you come to the end of listening to that and you're still utterly and entirely convinced that Arteta cannot win anything with this club, I don't think there's anything anyone could say that would convince you otherwise. If you are of a even slight open mind, perhaps taking a step back and thinking and looking at the broader picture about what Arsenal have done, are doing, will continue to do, it should give you at least a smidge of a sense that, yes, this team is competitive. This team continues to improve. It doesn't necessarily play the amazing football the Invincibles did. And frankly, I don't think anyone can anymore in this state of football. But Arteta's philosophy, Arteta's style of play has taken Arsenal back into competitive relevance and puts us as fans into a position whereby we can go into every season thinking that there is the possibility that Arsenal could win the biggest of trophies and that there is an expectation around Arsenal going for the biggest of trophies as well. That wasn't the case when he arrived. That wasn't the case 5 years before he arrived. That wasn't the case 10 years before he arrived. There was not a feeling that Arsenal can go into a season and win the title. There just wasn't. We haven't had that sense that Arsenal can consistently go into seasons as being a title challenger since those glory days in the early to mid 2000s. It's just not existed. So it's a simple one. It's a real simple one. But yeah, as I said, some people are never going to be convinced. Some people are never going to be convinced. And that's fine. I accept that. I'm not going to lose sleep over people that aren't ever going to be convinced until it happens. Some people need to see to believe, and I get that. That's culture. That's humanity. Some people need to see to believe things. But I've seen enough. I've seen enough that shows me that we are capable of winning things, and I think that we will. Gooner Code says, this thesis is pure waffle and delusion. As I often do, and I've got some time, because I'm not starting until 10 this morning. If you would like Gooner Code to jump on the show and tell me why it's pure waffle, I open that opportunity up to you. And I'll open the opportunity up to Olu as well. I think it was Olu in the chat as well. Please let me know if you'd like to come on and tell me why I'm wrong. Feel free. Get in touch. I'd love to have a chat with you. I'd love to give you the platform to explain why you don't agree with me, why I'm wrong, what's wrong with the opinion that I've got, and for you to explain that. I'm always open to hearing different views. I'm always open to hearing different opinions. So let me know if you are open to that. But yeah, I await your response. Other Olu says he is here for the long run, so some fans should learn to live with that. He's not going anywhere. I don't necessarily agree with this point. I don't think that you should have, just because we recognise he's going to be here, doesn't mean you can't be critical. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm about. You know, I think that if you are, I have criticisms of Arteta. I had big criticisms yesterday, as you heard. You know, I don't think he's beyond criticism at all. I think the reason we didn't win the game at Anfield was primarily, almost entirely, because of Arteta's approach to the game. Equally, if we had have won the game, it would have been down to him as well. But yeah, let's see. Let's see. And Gooner Talk says, been telling you all, chat, but let's pick one to reply that suits the offer. I'm literally showing you your comments, mate. I can do no more than offer you a platform to come on. But let me know if you want to, mate. You're more than welcome. Libark says, hi, Tom. Were we ever seriously linked with João Pedro and Ekitike this summer? No, not really. No. I mean, there were players certainly the club would have been across and looking at, but they weren't players that featured high in their, what they were looking for. Gyökeres and Šeško were the two big ones. Ekitike was kind of in the background, considered, but they didn't necessarily look at him. I think that's a mistake. I think Ekitike should have been more kind of higher up in the club's estimations. And I said that, I think we did shows. I think I talked to you after the Southampton game at the end of last season where we were having discussions in the press room before the match. And I said that, people were talking about Šeško, people talking about Gyökeres. And I said in that press room, I was like, well, Ekitike. And I'd watched more of him by that point. In January, February time, I hadn't really seen enough of him. But over the course of that last kind of 6 months of the season, I'd watched so much more of Ekitike. And it's evident that he's having some great moments, with Liverpool now. Fahim says, we were competing in title races during the 2010s. Well, not really. No, we weren't competing. The closest we got was 2015-16 when Leicester won the league, when we beat Leicester at home and Welbeck scored that late goal, but then we fell away. We weren't really in the races for the title. We didn't really compete. There wasn't a legitimate. We weren't being talked about, and it didn't carry on the next season. Like, I think the biggest thing about a title race, if you've had a title race or you're involved in a title race as a club, you're then talked about as a potential contender for the following season. That's not happened for Arsenal in a long time. A really long time. So yeah, difficult. A man says Arsenal had one shot on target at Anfield. That's anti-football as a league contender. Felt like minimal urgency. I don't think I came out of the game thinking we played anti-football, mate. I mean, if you want to talk about anti-football, I think it was 40 minutes into the game. I know maybe 35 minutes in, I looked over to the stats and Arsenal had 7 touches in Liverpool's box and Liverpool had 0 in ours. So I don't think you can turn around and say that Arsenal played anti-football at Anfield when that's the case. So what did Liverpool play? If we played anti-football, what did Liverpool? We had more shots than Liverpool in the game. We only had 6% less possession than them in the fixture. So I don't really understand where the whole anti-football tag comes from. Because, I mean, if we were playing anti-football, what were Liverpool doing? So, bit of a strange one that I don't really agree with. Ragamon says, as much as I rate Arteta for what he's done, I still think he's not the man to take us over the line. I hope I'm wrong. And that's another key point, is that I think there's a lot of people who like Ragamon here that, hope they're wrong. But I think there is others that don't think they're wrong at all. And just adamant that that's what they want to happen. Aoife says, it's very funny how football pros and the whole industry rate Mikel, but some fans with no expertise swear that he's not that. I also think, it comes in from a lot of the rival supporters as well. Rival fans are always on Arteta's case. Not all of them, but most of them. And it's because they want him gone. It's because they know how important Arteta is for Arsenal being where they are. And they know if they can get Arsenal fans to hound this guy out, they get Arsenal rid of the manager that's made them so less relevant over the last however many seasons. So trust me, rival fans would be delighted if Arteta got sacked. They would be delighted if he was sacked. Absolutely delighted. So, and that's so very telling. So very telling. They would be desperate to see him gone. Desperate to see him gone. James says, I feel like we had seasons where we would spend months at the top of the table, but then fell away after January. Injuries have always detailed Arsenal, to be honest, and injuries have always been key. Southport Gooner says, Tom, your thoughts and insight and analysis throughout the summer have been consistently spot on. A real credit for your professionalism. Thanks, Matt. It's very kind of you. I don't know where Gooner Codes has gone. He's disappeared. Olu has as well. So I guess we'll wrap up because they've, as so often is the case, and you offer someone a platform, people say that I don't listen to other people's views and, I'd only care about my opinion and no one else's, but I can't stop offering opportunities to people to come on the show. I can't stop offering people to come on and to give them a platform to challenge my views. I cannot stop doing it. It's a real problem. I'm addicted to it. But ultimately, when that offer arrives, quite like Tottenham Hotspur, they bottle it. Anyway, thank you so much for tuning in. Really appreciate your time. I hope you've had an absolutely fantastic start to your week, and I hope that the rest of it is good. Did we address the 1,000 likes on the other two shows? We're very close. We're only 11 away on Monday's show or Sunday's show, and we're only 9 away on yesterday's show. So if you want to try and help us get to 1,000 on both and complete the summer, please do. Thank you so much for listening. Have an absolutely fantastic rest of the day. Enjoy yourself. Stay safe, stay well, stay happy and respectful. And as always, up the Arsenal.